Hi, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology. Today, I am joined by my friend, colleague, former student in one of my programs, Davis Carr. We are going to talk about life as a professional astrologer. Davis just launched her professional tarot and astrology business at the end of May. And I'm having her on as a part of the ongoing series that I actually started around the new year and then had to kind of pause on because I was moving and we were looking for a new house and stuff like that. And the series was called Becoming a Professional Astrologer. So the point of this series is to showcase people I know, people that I think have really interesting, successful practices who have studied and made the bridge from being a student and an enthusiast of tarot or astrology into full-time practice, and especially people who have come out of my programs as well, so that they can speak a little bit to the process of my programs at the same time. So anyway, it's really lovely to have you here, Davis. Really glad to talk to you today about your practice.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such a delight to be on a show that I have used in my own educational practice. So very cool.
Yeah, right on. Well, okay, so I mean, I like to start with, I mean, you were really good student in my programs, but you had a long background of interest and study in astrology, in tarot and divination in general for many years. So maybe take us into the backstory a little bit. Like, how did you first get interested in astrology and tarot? How did these things come into your life? How did they start to evolve? Yeah, maybe just tell us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, the so I have an interesting path to astrology. So I grew up in a family that was very atheist, very secular, very social justice oriented. So spirituality and religion just weren't really ever part of my worldview growing up. And you sort of, as a person in North American society, you encounter pop astrology a lot, whether it's magazine horoscopes and things like that. And I sort of had this sense that there was this thing called a birth chart, and there were things you could learn from it. But it wasn't until 2015, the end of 2015, early 2016, that astrology sort of in its current form really came to me. And that is because, during a period of transformation and change in my life, I had finished my master's degree in Toronto and moved back to Ottawa, where I am from, for a dream job, working in communications. And it caused, a lot of tumult in my personal life. And around this time, in my new place of employment, I met a friend who read tarot, and she had a tarot deck. And that was my first time encountering somebody who was my age, had similar interests, was a really cool, socially progressive, social justice type of person who worked with divination. And around this time, it was also just, tarot and astrology started to become much more popular in culture in general around this time. And I also happened to find Chani Nicholas's Instagram, and that led me to her horoscopes, which led me to taking her new moon workshops. And I started purchasing her new moon workshops every month. And with no background in astrology, I think my first time looking at my birth chart was after I had purchased one of her workshops. And she had a little video saying, here's how to look up your birth chart. And that was I didn't realize it at the time, but that is when I started using astrology as a spiritual practice. It was the first time in my life that I sat down once a month to think about my life, think about what was coming. And then once I got into the pattern, I was able to review what came before. And that really just started getting me into the rhythm of astrology. And I started pairing the new moon and full moons with tarot spreads. So it really just started as my own personal practice for many years until I credit the eclipses in Aquarius and Leo, which activated my third and ninth houses, which are also where my IC and MC are. That just really blossomed astrology for me, and tarot, and I just really felt this calling to really understand it. I just saw the symbolism and the patterns, and it just resonated with me on this soul level.
Yeah, it's funny how it happens like that for a lot of people. There'll be a series of really important personal events, And those personal events will almost awaken this dormant interest or love of something like tarot or astrology. And it feels at that time like if I don't follow this, if I don't listen to this, there's just this feeling of like I have to do this. And it's funny to see how I've found, in many years of doing this, both in terms of teaching astrology programs and in terms of teaching yoga teacher training intensives, that there's usually one of two paths that people follow after that call reveals itself during the midst of some kind of personal transformation event or even crises. One is that the person will learn that language and it will effectively be like a midwifing experience into maybe another job or another relationship or moving. And usually it's not just, moving apartments, it's a significant sea change in their life. And that training portion of immersing themselves very deeply in astrological content or, developing a yoga practice, those are the things that I have experience with anyway, that it serves as this like midwife for a change of scenery, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And the other thing that I've seen is, of course, that people will emerge from that period not only personally transformed, but professionally, in terms of this is something I actually want to do for a living, or this is something that I want to give to others because it's had such an impact on me. And some people will come out of that process just a little bit more geared up to translate this language for other people, to read birth charts, to read cards, and to marry it to other facets of their life where they find meaning, whether that's your political activities, as you were mentioning, like your life as an activist was dovetailed with this. I'm not the world's most political person, but I've seen many people come through my programs experiencing what you've talked about. And also, I guess the feeling of that accompanies that is like, I have to take a leap at some point. And that's the part that I'm always really interested in hearing people talk through, because it's the question that I get the most from my students. There is absolutely nothing wrong with people going through a program and realizing this is a language for me. This is to help me develop practices. And a lot of people get that, whether, it's my own experience of yoga teacher training, even though I owned a yoga studio for 10 years, was that my yoga practice was really for me. And I was never so much a yoga teacher in terms of mat asana practice, right? But yoga had this huge impact on my life. For many people, astrology is the same way. But then for this other group of people, like I'm talking about, then you're like, no, I want to practice for others. I want to be a reader or whatever the case might be. But then there's this like hesitation, like, oh my God, am I really going to do this? Because it's kind of uncharted territory. It's like entrepreneurial territory. So how did that come up for you? How did you know, like, oh my God, I'm going to do this? And how did you navigate that experience?
Oh, that's such a great question because, on the one hand, I feel like I'm so fresh. I'm still really in it. But on the other hand, this has really been a process 2 years in the making. I started my practice with tarot because tarot is just a lot easier to learn, to be honest with you, than astrology, especially when what I was doing for a very long time, where I was self-taught and really trying to just scrounge together a formal education based on what I could do until I finally took the leap and took the course with you. So the starting my tarot practice at the beginning of 2019, I really felt like I had reached a point in my personal practice, like you said, where I knew that in order to learn more and go deeper, I needed to start working with other people, because divination is a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. It has to, I feel like there, to a certain extent, there's so much magic that exists in that relationship with the client, with the oracle, and in that process. And that's what I really wanted to cultivate. And I'm very grateful that I did a year and a half of reading tarot almost exclusively, because it really helped set up for my astrology practice those basic consultation skills around timing and introducing people, and even things like getting my calendar set up and my tech and things like that. But I was still working a full-time job, and I was still actively progressing in my career. And it really felt like there were these two separate parts of myself, where on the one hand, I was a dedicated 9-to-5 nonprofit communications employee who was getting promotions, and I was, investing in this organization. And then, all other hours of the day, I was building my practice and doing these other things. And for a really long time, I was able to do both. And it was really important for me to do both, because that's how I got my practice and put in my hours of practice. But after I took your course, your course is so fantastic, because it literally tells you all of the foundations, all of the basic metaphysics, and it really filled in all of those gaps in my knowledge. And I'm the type of person where once I learn something, in order to fully internalize it and take it to the next level, I have to teach it. And with traditional astrology especially, I just felt like it's the answer to everything. It's this amazing system, especially as somebody who loves astrology, tried to learn it by myself for so long. I had so many questions about, like, why does Venus rule love? And it turns out there's a very good reason for that. And so once I knew the secret, I just feel like I have to share it with everyone.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the most amazing things about training in any kind of like apprenticeship program. Well, specifically in ancient astrology, I would say, is that there's so much about a practice that needs to be fluid. It needs to be not in your head. It needs to be from the heart. It needs to be instinctual, conversational, as you said. And it is really, really hard to do that when you don't have a very deep grasp of the why behind all of the tools and techniques that you're practicing, and you don't have a deeper spiritual understanding of the why. I mean, there's the technical understanding of the why. Why do houses mean what they do? What is a sign? Where did the idea of a sign ever come from? What is a house, and how is it different from a sign? And why are there two different things called a house and a sign? Like, when you really get deeply into those things and you start to really understand them, then your ability to talk about them and use them becomes automatic. You don't have to think about it anymore. It becomes a lot simpler. It's like they say in a lot of sports, when college athletes make the jump to professional athletes, they'll often say, at first it was like the game was so fast and I couldn't process it. But then after a year or two of practice and really understanding everything, the game slowed down. You hear tennis players say that when they make the jump to pro tennis or whatever, the game slowed down for me. And that's what I think really good training should do for us. It should help everything slow down so that we can feel really natural and embodied and just being ourselves and reading from an intuitive place. But it's like jazz music. If you don't practice scales, it's hard to be intuitive and improvisational with those scales. So I think that's something that I just couldn't agree with more, because that's how my own practice transformed when I started studying ancient astrology, found a couple of really good teachers myself. And that's the model that my own program has been based on. But I think I want to go back to the leap that you made, because I think this is really important. Because I think this idea of something becoming natural and intuitive is a part of the process of making the leap from, say, one particular type of career into being a reader. Because what you were describing is, astrology, divination, tarot, that this language was permeating your life, that it was becoming more and more natural for you to think and act and see the world in this way. And correct me if I'm wrong, but at some point it becomes so undeniable that this is seeping in through all of the corners and cracks in your life that it's like, well, where does this go from here? Like, there feels like there needs to be some honoring of how much this is permeating my life. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh, absolutely. And, I don't think I really understood or appreciated just how much I was yearning to live my life more astrologically until I have the time and the space to really do that. It feels so wonderful now to schedule my time according to when transits are happening and things like that. And not to be, overly prescriptive about it, but just to know if Mercury is squaring Neptune, that is not a good day for me to comb through my emails and try to find all my receipts. it just makes living your life so much easier and so much more, not natural and intuitive.
Mhm.
Um, I also think for me particularly, I'm somebody who has always had multiple jobs. I've always done freelancing on the side. It's really, it's pretty normal for me to kind of have multiple streams of income and things like that. And I also have a background in digital communications and marketing. So when I started doing my business, one of the things that I loved about it is it finally felt like I had, I could use my marketing skills towards something that was mine and something that
Mhm.
I owned, I created, the things that I was thinking about and conversations I'm having with my friends about astrology. I want to have those conversations everywhere with everyone and just do more and more and more. So yeah, I
Right.
think you're totally right. Like it really just starts to seep into every facet of your life.
And Davis, when you were building your practice, I mean, so one thing that's really important to mention here is there is this play, it starts coming into your life more and more, and you have to start making decisions about it. Like, am I going to become a practitioner, or am I going to take a course? Or, and those are big choices for a lot of reasons. They can have social ramifications, they can touch your professional or financial life. But what I've noticed, which is, obviously a part of your story, is that oftentimes people will realize, oh, I have these particular skills, or I've had these particular experiences that may lend themselves to the transition that I'm trying to make right now. Um, for some people, there's skills that you're going to have to learn. There's skills that you don't have that may be new that you have to develop. But I think that one of the things that I've seen often is people taking whatever other skills or experiences that they've had and somehow employing them in the service of trying to become a professional. What are some of the most concrete things that you could offer as advice to others who are, say, maybe a couple years out from doing something like this? They got to study, maybe take some courses. They have to build a practice that, maybe most people can't launch a full-time practice just out of nowhere. So having made this transition, I mean, you've been someone who's had a lot of different streams of revenue and business and freelancing and things like that. So some of that's natural to, the lifestyle you've been living professionally for a while. But what are some basic advice or pieces of advice that you would give to people who are hoping to maybe slowly make a transition like that?
I mean, definitely taking a foundational course like yours is the very first, especially for astrology, to make sure that you are giving people accurate information and really like getting those basics down. But as you go, the way that I started is I started reading for people for very small amounts of money, like $10 a beer, $20, just my coworkers, people who I knew were, nice to me and wouldn't like get mad at me if I fumbled over things. And it really just takes time and practice. And I think that the best thing that if you're interested in starting this practice, the easiest thing to do is create a Calendly or an Acuity account. Get the free version and just set it up so that people have to book with you. Because what that does is it immediately creates a sacred container for the exchange to happen in. And even if it's for free, even if it's just $5, just getting into the practice of if somebody asks you for a reading or you want to, or you ask somebody if you can give them a reading, sending them that link, because it creates a barrier between yourself and the person. And it really creates good practices for later as you're trying to grow that business.
Hmm.
And then as well, just start an Instagram account, start a social media account, and start talking to other people in the community. Start talking to astrologers, other tarot readers. The basis of my marketing work really just came from the fact that I wanted to talk to other people about these practices that were so meaningful, but I didn't feel like there was anybody in my personal life or my immediate circle who could really understand them. So just putting yourself out there is the hardest and scariest thing to do, but it's the essential first step.
Right. And what I love about what you said was that, you did so with a humble spirit. Like you didn't puff yourself up. I'm a huge expert. I'm charging lots of money. As like when I tell people all the time, when I started, I did donation readings for a year. Not everyone has to do that, but there were some pros and cons to that approach. But just getting experience and putting yourself out there are huge, because usually by the time you are ready to do that, or you need to do that, you don't feel like you should, you don't feel like you can, you don't feel like you're good enough to do it, but you probably know a lot more than other people do about astrology already, or tarot, or whatever it might be. And the truth is that at like some point or another, every one of my students that I can think of that has like really successful full-time practices, that are, thriving, or that they've launched their own, they've gone full-time or whatever, there came a point where every single person had to say, I have to put myself out there more, and I have to do it regularly. I have to make community. I have to find a way to give readings to people. And that is more important than the end result, which, let's say in our head, is making as much money as my full-time job, or making this amount of money or whatever. It's almost like you got to just table that and focus on getting experience and putting yourself out there. And then eventually start stringing together enough experiences, and opportunities arise along the way. For a lot of people, that's going to be a process. Like, it's going to take a couple of years. But my feeling is that people who naturally love this stuff, well, you just can't help yourself. You keep doing it. Maybe there are things that aren't going to be easy to do, like putting yourself out there, but you're going to have to if you love it enough, because it won't go away. It'll just keep knocking on the door. Like, you love me,
Exactly.
you know, you do,
Yeah. I tried to deny it for so long and here we are.
Right. So, Davis, I wanted to tell everybody that the one thing you said that I want to reiterate, which is really not just about my program, although Davis is here to help promote my program. I want to make it clear to people that, I didn't take my program. I've taken, like I teach my program because I had teachers that empowered me. So, there are courses out there. My course may be one, my channel may be one stream of content that you take in. There's lots of other courses out there. In ancient astrology and Hellenistic astrology, I think there's more and more quality courses emerging. But the point is, whatever kind of astrology you're drawn to or study, finding a course, finding teachers, finding community that can help give you that grounded, that spark that comes from a practitioner who's practicing full time and teaching full time to you, I think is the number one most empowering thing that happened for me. My very first teacher, Rebecca Gordon in New York City, she empowered me. She taught me, she helped me, and she said, go and do it, and like, don't feel bad about it, go and do it. And when you have teachers and peers in a community where there's an immersive experience, and oftentimes it'll do one of two things. It'll catalyze some kind of larger change in your life. Astrology will still be your friend, but it'll point you in the direction you need to go. Or it may open the door for you to practice full time. And those are typically the two ways that I see things go. Now, again, just to reiterate that, I've had probably, and I can think of 3 different teachers that I've had in my life that have been really important to me. So it's not just one teacher or necessarily one approach or method. I do personally believe it's better to kind of focus in, but sometimes that takes time too, to really find your approach and find what particular methods and teachers are going to work for you. But if you keep doing that over time along the way, a lot of the confidence to put yourself out there will start coming, because you've been through a process, you've tested your knowledge, you keep studying, and so forth. Davis, I want to talk about one of the things that we're hoping to do next year. It's a little tough because it's hard to project sometimes how long something takes that you've never done before. So we're in the process of starting to create a donation-based clinic, which will essentially be, a place where people can get donation-based readings, and it'll allow for me to give some of my students the opportunity to read and get experience. It'll offer more affordable readings for people. I've had to standardize my rates. I have a 1-year wait list. I want to be able to, there's more people that want readings. And I'm like, well, I have really lots of good students who could give readings. So I want to showcase their talent, get them experience, get some affordable rates for people. When I was a kid, the University of Minnesota, I used to get my dental work done there, and the students would essentially do the dental work for you because they're in training, and you would get a very affordable or even free dental work. My mom used to take us there. So that's actually the model that my donation-based work started from. And that's what I want to repeat. And, Davis is already someone that we're most likely, hopefully, we'll see, it's a ways out yet, but we want to get involved with that donation-based clinic. So that's something that we're really excited about, and hopefully Davis will be a part of that. In the meantime, getting that experience is super important, and for me, it's also important to promote the work of my students and show people, here are some of my students who are doing really good, really focused, awesome student of astrology, and here's what they're doing. So I want to show you Meridian Tarot, which is Davis's website, and just kind of show you what Davis is up to. So here, tell me if you can see it on the screen, Davis.
Well, there it is.
Okay, cool.
Woo-hoo.
So this is your website. Tell us what we can find here. Tell us about the different kinds of services that you offer.
Yeah, so Meridian Tarot and Astrology is the name of my business. As I mentioned, I started with tarot, but have now am fully doing astrological consultations as well. If you go to offerings and services, you can see my selection of readings. Right now, I am offering natal chart readings for folks, as well as year ahead birthday readings. I'm really enjoying doing forecasting work. It's really, really awesome to look at upcoming transits and help people through things. But I have both the birth chart, your standard birth chart reading, and some solar return birthday stuff. I also, for folks who are returning, I offer a special rate for returning clients because I love working with people over and over again. You just get so much richness in diving into their chart, and I get to experiment with some of the fun techniques that I've learned over the years. And I also offer tarot readings as well. So if you scroll up to the top, you'll see tarot in the menu. So I offer 30-minute clarity check-ins and 60-minute sessions for longer ones. And then I also am in the process of writing and creating my own tarot book, tarot deck rather, in collaboration with my colleague and collaborator, Elenbaas from the Hollow Valley. So we are going to launch our deck on Kickstarter in mid-late August. The date is still TBD, but it is forthcoming. I am writing the guidebook. She is illustrating. All of the artwork behind me that you can see on the upper shelf is her work, as well as the beautiful natal chart reading. She does birth chart illustration as commissions. So I highly recommend you check out Erin's work as well. And, one of the best things about working with Erin is that, having a colleague in the midst of doing this work just makes it so much easier to be a business owner. Mm-hmm. I also write a transit forecast, as you can see on my blog. So I have some descriptions of the solar eclipse in Gemini. And if you keep scrolling, I actually do month ahead forecasts. So you can see breakdowns of all of the major transits of the month ahead. And that's been such an amazing exercise as an astrologer, really, really getting me in the practice of doing more forecasting and things like that. So I'm just so excited to have all the time to write and create more content.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's an investment of time and energy every day to be a content creator, in addition to being a reader, a continual or perpetual student. But like you, I think, I feel like when I got bit by the bug, it was like, that's it. This is absolutely what I love. This is my language. It felt like coming home somehow. So
yeah, it feels like a remembering more than anything else. Like it just settles in your bones.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I'm really happy to take some time to showcase, occasionally taking the time in this series to showcase the talent of my students, the people out there who's, I think, have taken some heart-centered risks and putting themselves out there, who have been really good students in my classes, who can help me promote my classes, but also more generally encourage people in their path with astrology. So thank you, Davis, for being here today and just sharing something about yourself and your practice. You just launched at the end of May 2021. So you're like a little less than a month in. What are some of the
fresh.
Yeah, like what are some of your give us a few good stories that have happened so far since you launched. What are some of your high notes so far?
Oh my goodness. I mean, this definitely counts as a high note, I think, getting to talk to you and your audience. It's been so, I mean, working on the tarot deck with Erin has just been so wonderful, because now that I'm full-time, I just have so much more energy for us to work and collaborate. She's such a talented illustrator, and it's been really validating just to have a partner in all of this. So that's definitely been a highlight as well, just being able to really fully embrace my communities. I have one of the things that has been most helpful in building my practice is making friends with other holistic business owners, other herbalists, other readers, and folks like that. And so now I just feel like, you know, before I had a very structured work colleague and ecosystem, and now my fellow tarot readers and fellow astrologers are my colleagues and my coworkers. And I'm just so excited to be part of the community.
Well, that's awesome. I'm super happy for you. I hope that you continue to be met with a lot of success, and that you continue to learn and be in awe of how amazing all of this is. Um, you know, one thing that I'll say in closing for everybody listening is that, you know, like the position that Davis is in right now. I mean, it's about 11 years ago right now that I was finishing my first astrology program after being interested in it for several years previously. And I was collecting unemployment literally, and was like, well, I had my book coming out. I didn't have a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I decided to, you know, launch an astrology practice. And I thought, well, we'll just see how it goes. And, you know, if I have to, if this is just a pipe dream, well, at least I'll have given it a shot. And I can't think of one person that I've either had on this series. I think there's been 3 or 4 episodes so far, or that I've talked to from my students who have gone on to do something like this, who didn't go through something very similar. So for all of you out there who love astrology, who are thinking of practicing, know that you're not alone in some of these passages. Know that there are enthusiastic people out there. And people always ask me, do you think that the market is like oversaturated with astrologers? And I'm always like, no, because astrology has been around for thousands of years. People are always interested in astrology. Astrology survives and even thrives when things are really difficult in the collective. Most astrologers, for example, did a lot better during COVID, or have been doing better during COVID, because when people are really uncertain about their futures, astrology is a very comforting source of knowledge and wisdom to turn to. Your immediate sphere of influence is your client referral. That's where your client referral network starts. If you start doing readings for people you know and love who are safe to work with, and you just keep plugging away at it, your referral network will grow very naturally. It's not like there's an astrology shop on every corner. I know that sometimes when people are online, it feels like, gosh, there's astrologers everywhere. Everyone's, you know, on Instagram, or everyone's, but the thing is that if you really ground yourself in the practice and the study and keep going with it, it will grow, and the people who are meant to work specifically with you will find you. There are very few professional astrologers in North America, despite what people may think. And so, you know, the field is wide open. And I think Davis is a great example of someone who gave her heart to it, and over a period of time has been able to make the transition. I hope this was educational for everyone today. I hope you guys will go check out Meridian Tarot. One of the students came through my program that I'm really proud of. I hope that she does fantastic things. And Davis, I hope you'll stay in touch with us and let us know how things go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you guys again next week. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.